Most people only see the highlight reel of trading, the big wins, the perfect charts, the trades that look obvious after the fact. But what you rarely see is the process behind the traders who actually last in this business. The routines, the risk management, and all the mistakes that happen along the way. In this series, we're sitting down with real traders who operate in the zero DTE world, one of the fastest and most intense parts of the market. We're not here to talk about secret indicators or magic setups. Instead, we're digging into how these traders actually approach the craft, how they structure their day, manage risk, and deal with the mental side of trading when the market inevitably tests your discipline. Because if you've traded for any meaningful amount of time, you know the market has a way of teaching lessons, and the tuition is rarely cheap. So let's get into it.
I'll start off by so you can introduce yourself, give us a little bit of background of, share what you want, of who you are, what brought you to trading. How about we start with that? Like, what's your, before slinging, premiums like crazy, what were you doing before that?
Um, yeah, I came to trading from an interest in investing. I have always been interested in investing and how to, and for a long time, I was just an index investor. Put money in my accounts and buy spy. I bought a lot of Apple over the years.
Good for you.
That was my one big invest I bought before the iPhone was released the first time. That was a
Wow.
good investment. But, I wanted to learn more about it, and so I started, you know, checking out books from the library, and I wasn't getting very far because a lot of it was just over my head or poorly written. I was looking for something online, and at the time, like, YouTube wasn't quite the thing it is now, so it was like trying to pick and choose stuff, and I found a course that I took where in one of the lessons they started teaching about options trading, and I was like, "What is this?
Do you remember what
What
course
is
that
it?"
was? Amy, do you remember what that was?
Um, it's gonna evade me, but it's a value investor guy. He has
Interesting.
books and he does these kind of probably lead generating courses, that attract people into his programs. I think it was I'm not gonna remember his name, but
That's
it
fine.
was in one of those that they were teaching about well, they used Thinkorswim, and so it was like this whole I was like, for me, like someone who uses all this design software, I was like, "This thing looks like it came out of the early '90s. Thinkorswim, what is this thing?" But it was like just this whole world that fascinated me. I mean, I love numbers and math and everything, and I was like, "Derivatives, what's that?" And so I
But
started
why, Amy? Like, so you're a designer by trade, it sounds
you
like. It's like you don't fit the mold. Like, I'm not saying like there is a mold, but like, so you're a designer by trade, and now something makes you gravitate towards not only stocks, but derivatives, which is like even more complex than just like,
yeah, no.
yeah, I'll just buy Apple and, in 10 years cash out on it. Do you
I
do you know what that I'm just curious to try to tie those things together
Yeah,
for our audiences.
it is weird. It is very
I'm
weird.
not, like, so is there something about it? Is it just because you don't again, I've seen you online for years. Like, you're not like you don't seem like the gambling type that you would just like, again, I'm just making a judgment
No,
based on
no.
like your common history, pretty much. That's
Yeah.
as much as like you don't seem like that you're YOLO into calls. Like, so what is it? Can you tie that back for our
Yeah,
audience?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Yeah, one thing I know about myself is I'm a pretty capacious learner. Any kind of new interesting subject is like for me like, "Oh, what's that?" And I'll spend a lot of time reading about it or learning about it. So, I have a lot of things in my life like that where I've just kind of found something that's kind of outside my wheelhouse, but it fascinates me either because a friend does it and I'll just start reading a bunch of things. So, it's just I mean, ever since I was a kid, I just like learning. So, I think that's part of it, and then I'm also very analytical, so even in my work, I mean, I could show you, like, some of the stuff that I've done in the past is involves, like, drafting and designing, like, sewing patterns and things like that, and a lot of that is, like, math and drawing and kind of almost like architecture stuff. So
interesting.
it's like there's a part of me that even in my work was always tapping into architect brain or maybe an engineer brain. And so, like, for me, options kind of had that part, was very analytical. And I was just like, well, this is fascinating. So it wasn't, It's weird because at first it wasn't even really about money. It was just about figuring out the weird mystery that options are, Um, but I mean, I did think, okay, like as someone who loves who likes investing and was, kind of creating this like nest, I was like, well, how can I use options to add to that? And what's the value in that? And so, I like in the beginning, I was like a lot of people, I was watching a lot of like tasty trades, stuff like that, trying to figure out the basics of all of it. But I did start watching and reading more quantitative type traders. Like that kind of approach really appealed to me. Like, how can I use that
And that's
and
because of the
combine that
math
with a,
component, Amy? Was that because of the
yeah,
math? Yeah, yeah. How were
yeah,
you like? Were you when you first started investing? You mentioned that Apple buy. Were you just like? Do you have deep emotional ties to money when it comes to investing, or are you pretty much like, hey, I believe in the thesis that I've sort of put in
yeah,
my head. Like I'm just gonna,
yeah.
yeah,
I've had to think about this a lot just being in groups and noticing people because I was never like strongly attached to like particular stocks or companies. For some people, that's really important. They like the narrative around certain things. And so for me, it was like, way more analytical than that. And of course, well, Apple was more like, because I, I mean, I've been using them my whole life. So that made sense to me
yeah, yeah,
at the time that I started investing. But,
right.
whether it's investing or options, I tend to stay pretty detached from like what it is I'm doing, and I don't know why all the way, because it's kind of like it's like if it makes sense mathematically, I'm interested in it, but I don't tend to form like narratives around certain things that I mean some people need that to stay engaged, which I totally understand. For me it's like this perpetual math problem that I like to solve.
Right, 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 right.
I
Of
just
course.
it tickles my brain in that way.
Right,
It's very
right.
interesting. Yeah.
Keeps you mentally sharp, right? Because yeah,
But, some people enjoy I mean, I'm an independent, like, business person, and I really and, on top of that, so I ran my own business, and I enjoy the money management side of things. So, like, I had to learn uphill how to do my own bookkeeping and in the beginning, my own accounting and everything, and so that part, I like that. I like the money management part. So, I mean, that also dovetails into it.
so the original investing, so kind of walk me through. So again, Apple purchase, first trade. Walk me down the road, like briefly. Where do you discover the sort of the you know the cocaine of cocaine of trading, which is
I'll
the
tell
high
you
velocity?
I think okay,
When
so
do you
I think
discover the cocaine of trading? Is kind of the question.
well, at that so here's what happened. Oh, I'm remembering now. So, this is 2021. So we're during the pandemic. A lot of people, well,
Right.
like a lot of people, I don't know. I just sort of discovered that I
Do you remember
remember
who your conduit was? Who was your like who gave you the
yes,
first
because
tip?
after I took that class, I was really curious. So I looked up, I started watching videos, but I found someone in Austin that actually runs like a trading club. And he was doing like courses for people or just having local Zoom meetings with other traders. And so I
That's super
did
cool.
a couple meetups. I wanted to meet people who are doing it and got to I mean, it was a wide variety of people, different ages and genders, and I was like, "This is so interesting," and, like, got to talk about trades, and up until a point, even with this group, I had only done paper trading. It was just like I was super cautious.
Manual. We're talking about manual paper trading.
Yes. Yeah,
You didn't even
and
discover bots at this point, right, Amy?
I'm sorry?
You didn't discover bots at this point, like robot, like
No.
automated.
No, and this was, like, 2021, so I'm not even
I
sure what was out there in terms of
think
bots
Option
yet.
Alpha may have been out there,
That's true.
maybe.
I think I had heard of it, but I didn't know
Yeah.
how to use it. And so I wasn't even sure what to trade. So I like and even in paper trading, I was doing like futures options, like everything and different like commodities. I was just playing around and then I think I made my first trade towards the end of 2021. Like many people, it was a covered call.
This is so now we're in your options trading career. We've started the options trading career
Yes.
with a covered call on some sort
Yeah.
of ES or something like that.
No, I did it on my Apple stock,
So you
which
did it
I
on
had
your
a
Apple
lot
share. My
of.
apologies.
And here's the hilarious thing. This is gonna go into my personality with trades. I think it was on for 2 days before I took it off because I was like, "I don't wanna lose this stock." I was
Yeah,
like,
you got to
I
deliver the
don't,
shares if you're breached.
I don't want to lose the stock and I don't care if this makes money. I took it off. I think I
The
want my
loss
stuff.
was your first option trade a loss or a win? Was it a
It was
loss?
a lot. It was a
Yeah, because
loss.
got it.
It was, I don't remember. It was right before, like remember late 2021, early 2022, things started kind of sliding down.
Right.
It wasn't quite then yet, so it was still going up. But I I did another trade after that I think I won it. It was a small trade on like I sold an option on Ford. I was like trying to get really tiny trades. I was like
Interesting.
trying to baby
I
step
remember
my way
Ford
into
was
it.
always like a cheap, like it was like an inexpensive stock. I remember that.
Yeah. I was like, and then my next one, I think I tried futures options and I lost that. But I immediately, like as soon as I would see something losing, it was just like I was out. I just didn't know how to deal with that.
So
Like, I'm not a
interesting.
person who lets things run until they're,
So
bad.
why did you? So okay, so let's step. There's a lot to unpack here. So you traded these sort of fairly junior level type strategy on stocks you're
Mhm.
familiar with.
Yeah.
This is without any sort of like you didn't know what back testing is at this point. You're just this is
No.
gut. This is discretionary Amy slinging from the hip, shooting from the hip.
Yep.
Pow
Yep.
pow. Got it.
Yep.
Got it.
So, I mean, I didn't know that there was a way to be like,
Yeah. Yeah.
every day. I just
Yeah.
know what I learned.
Right.
And then of course with some of the stuff I learned, it was all about looking for like high IV or something that, you know, um
Chart pattern or whatever. There's a definite
High
resistance.
IV. I was like, "Sell and high IV," because that's selling premium, and selling premium was really the only thing I had been introduced to, even through the trading group in Austin, that's all they did. So I didn't learn about, like, buying calls or anything like that, I didn't know. So that was kind of all I had. I think what I started doing was I was like, "Okay, I don't know what I'm doing, so might as well just stick with something that makes sense to me since I own SPY." I just sold puts on SPY. So that did okay for a couple months,
Cash
but then
secured, meaning if it was to crash, you would take it on as a
yeah,
commodity.
yep. And I don't think I had margin at the time. I was still like even in my account, no matter how big it was, I just didn't know that I needed margin. So I was probably only cash secured like that I could do. And then 2022 started. And so like I had this like a couple of SPY puts and they were going like one of them went in the money and I was kind of like, okay, do I just keep letting that go? I can take the stock, but I wasn't sure. And so I started researching like, selling puts on SPY. I was just Googling, Googling, Googling. And through that, I found, of all the things, I found the Twitter page of David Sun. And
The
I didn't
infamous.
yeah, and he had some, like, posts on Twitter that were really interesting to me, and I was kinda like, "Who's this guy?" And I just his sort of approach to, like, targeting and sizing, he has a lot on, like, sizing and premium targeting, and I thought that was interesting, and so because that was my first encounter with sizing, like, learning how to size each trade, like, no one taught me that, and so I was like, "Okay," so I kinda started trying to find more of his stuff, and then eventually I ended up I mean, that wasn't long after that. I found his Discord and joined his
You
Discord, which
had
is
to
probably
pass
where
the
I met
test first.
you.
You had to pass the test first, Daniel. Don't forget. And sizing, like blow up risk or book size, was part of the questions. I remember.
It really
So
was.
and
Actually, all those questions that he asked, I'd watched all those.
yeah,
They were just so helpful to me.
his podcast had kind of in sections of his podcast, he had answers to all these questions. We're just giving some kind of context to join the Discord. We all have to go through like a short questionnaire and like you either pass or fail to get access, right? And he looked at it as like, well, instead of charging you, I'm charging you with your time. At least that's kind of the premise that he was going with. Like you've done the homework to listen to my material. You're gonna add some value into the group. So
Yeah. I
that
mean,
was an
I think
interesting approach.
it
Yeah, for
was.
sure. It
It
was
was. I
different.
mean,
Yeah.
it just depends on, like, I think, he has his philosophical outlook on the market. And it's, if you're running a Discord, it's kind of good to find fellow people in the same vein. But I also, then I start meeting all these other traders that were kind of in the same boat I was. Like a lot of them had come from similar backgrounds. Many had been trading longer than me, but I just found it very easy to talk about my questions. And I was Gosh, when I joined, I was like the person of a million questions.
That's how you
um,
learn, though, right? Like how else
yeah, I
you
was
learn?
just like, but that way, I'm sure you can explain, but that kind of backdrop, which is a very sort of systematic way of trading, which is kind of about increasing, first of all, your occurrences. If you find an edge in a trade and it's something that benefits from frequency of entry rather than like filtering it down or, having, I don't know, I don't know all the words for it, but it's like that was kind of a breakthrough to me rather than trying to pick and choose certain times based on my intuition of when to do certain things. Because then I could measure, at least based on the past. And that was my encounter with backtesting. I could measure based on the past what the outcome
Mhm,
of this could be
mhm.
in the future. And that was huge learning curve for me because of course in 20 so I joined his Discord and he like one of his main strategies is selling puts on S&P, whether it's SPX or SPY or ES and at 90 days out, and that was a bearish year. So anybody that was doing that was
You're
getting
alluding to the infamous theta engine trade.
yeah. Anybody that was doing that was like, but at the same time, I was very mechanical about it. So I was learning how to do that, how to stick with a certain like way of doing
So
things
so
and
let's
also
talk about that.
sizing. Yeah.
Yeah, so you sized it. So did you get your sizing in pretty correctly early on?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I went a little nuts. I created a whole spreadsheet and had, my every day I would update my net lick and like what percent of my account I wanted to sell and then it would just like drop down. I knew how to use Google Sheets like from my work and everything.
Right,
So I just kind of learned how to make
right.
these like drop downs of okay, here's what I need to sell this week and here's how I can divide that up around trades and just that type of organization really appealed to me, so I
So you
I
set
was
it
doing
up.
it that way.
So you set it up. You're running theta engine and you're sized correctly.
Mhm.
Now, do you stick to mechanics? This is early options, Amy, right? So this is like
It's early options, Amy.
so like are you revenge trading? Number one question. And number two, are you sticking to mechanics? Where you're like, this is going lower, I'm getting out early. I could tell. Like it hasn't hit stop loss, but like you could tell things are bad, and you're like, listen, if I just cut it now, I could save X amount.
Yeah,
Give us give us uh,
give
give
us
us
the
some of your
Amy. Okay, gosh, yeah, the first 3 or 4 months of 2022, it's like the whole market's going down and volatility's going up, and I'm learning how to trade in this, so yeah, and I'm losing. I mean, I did win some trades. There was like a bounce in February. I remember that year, and so there were some profit
Mhm.
targets and stuff. Then March happens, and I remember this because I was about 2 weeks in, and I was very mechanical about it. So I'd been doing it for a couple months, and there was a
You didn't hit
big.
any stop losses during those couple months, did you? Or no?
I did.
You
I
did. Okay.
did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And but then March happens, I think it was like I can't remember mid to late March. There was a big kind of volatility peak and things going down and I started hitting some stops. And that is like the one time I've done 3 revenge trades and that is one of them. It was just a lot. I was like, watching your money disappear is kind of
I
like
know.
a big deal the first time around. I was
I
like,
know.
and so here's my revenge trade story. I was
What did you revenge trade? I lost that part. So give us the
so I
trade.
couldn't sleep. I woke up, it was like 3 in the morning, my time, and I was looking at gold futures. I mean, IV was like off the charts on gold. So I sold a strangle on gold in this like
Naked.
insane, oh yeah, insane IV. The next, if anybody goes and looks at gold chart over the last like 5 years and look at 2022, the peak of gold where it was, that was the day after I sold this thing. It was like the worst time ever to do this.
You call the top.
I called the top, but I also lost a lot on the way down.
But must have had some parameters, like some sort of stop parameter.
I didn't know. I mean, I didn't let it drag. No, I'm not that person, but I don't I've never let a trade drag out really bad, but I knew right away. I didn't know there was a word for it. I knew right away that it was a trade I shouldn't have done because I was like, "Oh, juicy. Maybe I'll make some money." And future I mean, also, that was my first maybe second time selling futures options, which is like very little margin compared to other things. And then also like, yeah, I was
They
like,
use
this
span
is
margin,
cool.
right? It's different
Yeah.
than yeah.
Yeah.
But that margin can expand pretty dramatically if IV
Oh,
goes up.
yeah. And that
Uh,
happened too. I mean, I was like, I was seeing that happen. So that was my first encounter with that. And
because
so,
you can get forced liquidated. That's a good lesson actually for newer traders that
yeah,
definitely look into how span margin works before you do trade futures because
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that can really go
I
against
have
you pretty quickly.
Yeah, span. Well, okay, so I was selling Theta Engine on MES and occasionally ES. So that also had span. So my margin was going up and I was learning about that as I was going. So span and portfolio margin, I mean, you learn, especially like in that year, like in a crash, or I mean, it's happened to us multiple times now where, yeah, you can see your margin like double in a very extreme
Absolutely.
event. And if you're not careful.
So you don't have any like crazy okay, so it's all controlled revenge. You have only done 3
Yeah.
revenge trades, which is like an average
Control I like it's controlled revenge.
day for like a classic Discord revenge trader. Okay, so that
Yeah,
you're well controlled then.
yeah,
So okay, so now you're learning about all this. You're kind of consuming all this is continuously being sort of like a mental challenge for you. Do you then now okay, you're like, okay, I'm gonna take this more seriously and start creating some goals around? Like, did you go into this besides the education piece with some sort of financial goal?
yeah. And I'm, like, still in the middle of that goal because
Okay,
I, have a project that I've been kinda saving up for years, and it's related to a nonprofit that my husband and I used to run. So there's part of it is a part of it is now kind of personal income, and then part of it is, like, a big kinda savings bucket that I have towards a
got it,
future goal.
got it.
And I didn't even think that was gonna be possible, and then I didn't know I mean, at this time, in 2020, I didn't know that people traded full time. I just thought like investors in my brain, investors are people that it's kinda like something they do, and then they put aside and go on with the rest of their lives, and then I started meeting all these full-time traders. I was like, "This is a thing people do."
Yeah,
Full
yeah,
time, and I mean, I thought that was really cool, and I mean, now, of course, I've met the whole span of there's people that it's part of their career, but not their only or that's their full time, or maybe being in the finance business is their full time, and there's a
yeah,
variety of aspects to that.
right.
So I think that gave me a lot more ideas about how to do it. Of course, at this time, being in David's Discord, a lot of people were trading 0 DTE, and you'll
Here
find this
we
funny,
go.
but
Here we go.
there
Here are the
was
cocaine stories.
there was a 0 DTE channel in the Discord, and I had it muted because it freaked me out.
It was too much. It was too
Oh my
much
gosh,
going
it
on
was
in there.
like I forget which of the military conflicts happened that year, but I remember there was a military and it was just this like nonstop. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this Discord is like full of like armchair generals and like people freaking out at screens and like yelling about stops and stop." And it was just like, "What is that?"
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
the rest of the Discord was pretty mild. People just talking about strategies, but it wasn't a lot of chatter
Because
every day.
nothing is as high octane as DDT because everything happens within those, 6.5, whatever, 7 hours of trading, right? So
Yeah.
from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, you know your full outcome. So there's a lot
Yeah.
more of that adrenaline or everyone,
So I've never been in gaming discords either. So I was like, I didn't know what all that was. I was like, that's a
yeah,
world I don't understand.
right.
And then, and then I just got curious. Like I kind of, I
You
would
took a
peek in there. And then one day I was just like, you know what? I am just going to scroll. And I did an infinite scroll and I started as far back as I could find. And
that's
I was just
hilarious.
looking for like, what, because that no one was really sharing mechanics, but it was once in a while people would say, this is the stop loss I use, or this is when I enter, or this is what I do. And so I just started like reading and I took notes and I wrote down what people were doing. And then finally I was like, like I was being secretive about it because I was like sneaking in the 0 DT room looking and going, maybe I should try this, And then I was like, over here, I was like, okay, I'm going to try it. And so I didn't tell anybody. I just decided one day to start trading it. And I was on Tasty Trade at the time. I remember that was my broker. And so I did some zero, and you'll find this funny. because I kept seeing a few people in the Discord saying, "Do not leave your stops off. Do not take off your stops." And I was so worried about not having a stop. Like, I memorized how to put a stop on in Tasty Trade. Like, as soon as this goes on, you got to do this, and this is where you got to click. And it was so nerve wracking because I was just kept hearing
because things move fast,
stories
right?
about
No,
how
you make a
fast
good
it
point.
moves and like not being without a stop. And so, of course, now there are a lot of people that run zero DTE without stops, and there's a way to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just
Defined risk
like,
stuff is different. You didn't,
yeah.
yeah, of course. I'm assuming your first zero D trade wasn't a defined risk trade. That was just like a
No, it
naked,
was like a lot of people know about MEIC, so maybe like context years. A lot of people in 2022 were trading that style, like,
right?
selling iron condors multiple times during the day. And, there were everybody had different like widths
Flavors
of
of it,
their
yeah.
iron condors or premium or stop levels, like, just different, but it was kind of all similar like that.
Hmm.
So that's what I tried. And then after I didn't I lost my first day, and that but it was like horror and excitement. So that part I
The
share
bug,
with everyone.
the bug
It was
hits
like
you.
a weird buzz, and I was like, "Okay, I think I get it."
You get the hype.
But I was also seeing like how that year people were making money from zero DTE, and I was like, "Okay, this is so different than selling puts on a market that's going down." And I thought, well, maybe I should focus more on short term trades. And I remember talking to my husband about it. I was like, am I crazy for getting into like trading? And am I like the first person, that's in because I was
Does
like,
your
this
husband
is
have
so
any sort of,
fast.
is he in finance at all, Amy, or is
No,
he like,
no,
not at
he's
all?
also an artist. Yeah. But it took a long time. He now knows, like, he can talk
He knows
about
the
bonds
lingo?
with me. It's kind of cool.
Does he know the lingo now?
A little bit, yeah. He does. He has a friend who used to day trade here, and so he's learned a lot about crypto. Definitely, he has friends that are into Polymarket and all that now. So he's learned about that stuff. So, but as far as options, that was totally like, something I had to keep talking about because they're weird. Options are definitely a weird one.
They're definitely different. They're
Yeah,
definitely different. So,
yeah,
okay, so now you discover zero D, and obviously first it's just manual zero D trading.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, like I would it's an and this is before automation for 0 DTE came out.
Mhm.
I mean, I would put my tranches on in the morning, and, um, specifically remember a couple times it would be like 1 o'clock. I'd put a tranche on. I'd go to drive to the gym, get out in the parking lot at the gym, double check, make sure my stops were
Make sure
still
it's
on.
still there.
And
Nice.
I don't miss those days because it was a lot to I mean, I trusted it, and yet I was keeping an eye on it all the time, so it was a lot, and I understand how automation took some of that management anxiety out of people because it was a lot to because things and I never had anything happen, like a stop skipped or anything go wrong in that period, but I've seen it happen since then to people, and I know it can. So and while automation doesn't make things perfect, as you and I know, it's definitely takes a lot of that. I mean, manual trading is a lot of work, and it was taking up a lot of my time. And so I wanted some of my time back. Yeah.
And then sort of you've decided that, hey, keep conviction. At least this is like only way I was able to find conviction in something was the back testing part. And I know obviously previous results are not, you know, doesn't mean you're gonna, have future results that are similar, but the thesis behind why there's edge in something that we do and the ability to have that repeat or that edge to continue to occur made
Yeah.
more sense to me than just manually like predicting
Yeah.
levels or I've
Yeah.
looked at everything. Like my journey is kind of similar to yours. I looked at everything possible. I was part of endless groups to like, guaranteed levels, pivot point, like dude, like it's there's a ton of stuff on the internet about this. But then when after discovering back testing and thoroughly kind of going through and understanding
Yeah.
why there's edge and why it's likely to repeat, so like VRP being the anchor and kind of then maybe layering some signals on top of it,
Yeah.
like, okay, this is car insurance, basically cars crash once every X amount of times, but the majority of the times cars don't crash. whatever the difference
Yeah.
is between what I pay out in car insurance claims versus what I sell in premium I get to keep, and like kind of justify it to myself in that way as
Yeah.
an example, and then kind of took it obviously to
Yeah, and I've had a lot of conversations with kind of more discretionary traders about back testing and what it's for, and it's not about predicting the future, but it is about measuring outcomes within. And this is very eccentric of me, but I really visualize the distribution of things when I'm back testing, and so of course you can create graphs that show you that, but it's like if this is the kind of the center and the bulk of everything that statistically that a trade does, pretty solid bet. And you can visualize those, or you can visualize like tails, like extreme events. If you're using filters, how strong are those filters? How many times do those occur? There's a lot of things that can be measured, but you're not trying to predict what's going to happen. You're just saying, given enough samples, given enough occurrences, this is the outcome that tends to happen. And so it's an edge that you can move into. All that language to me took a while to learn, but as I kept getting these light bulbs, and I've sort of grown up with back testing too, and I feel really blessed by that. Like Option Omega, which I use, that came out like in March of 2022, and so a lot of people had started using it, and me too, and so I've sort of grown up with it.
mhm.
And, of course, Trade Automation Toolbox came out that fall, and I was like, I'm in, And so I started using that right away because it was automating the exact trades I was doing at the time.
Did you find that it took away any sort of okay, so you had conviction in your trade, sounds like you did. Did you find it took out the emotional impact of trading when you deployed automation into your system? Or were you still as emotionally attached?
You know, I I went back and forth a lot. I had days that were really hard, and also I was a new trader so in the beginning, and 0 DTE. What was really great about that first year for me, that was a great year to be trading 0 DT, and I
Period,
explain
yeah.
it to people like it was the same with other types of trades. It was just like throw a dart, you hit something, like you don't have to search within the edge for really specific
Mhm,
refinements to it. It was just really easy. And
mhm.
I think and it also I mean, I came even in my investment account, I finished positive that year because of 0 DT. Yeah, like
Right.
otherwise my whole account would have been down because I still had investments. Um, and so it was like, I think because of all that success, I wasn't prepared for how difficult it was going to get once the market changed a little bit, which it did. So I kind of had my ups and downs, especially in 2023. I was really struggling to I was kind of getting bored with some of the stuff I was trading. And so I think boredom probably affects me more than like, why isn't this working? And I
Did you
think
size
boredom
up?
is
Amy, did you size up? Because you did well in 2022, so I'm
yeah, I
assuming, like,
did.
you did
I
size
did.
up. Yeah, okay.
I did size up. I had a really rough beginning of the year, the next year, and I kept trading what I was doing into the middle of the year. But I mean, there were mixed. Some people did really well that year. I just really struggled to find and I was doing the same thing
Mhm.
I'd been doing all along. I just couldn't find it. And I was making money that year. I didn't have a big drawdown, but it was just kind of like, it was just flat a lot. And I couldn't
You weren't
figure
able to
out
get any velocity out of a curve.
yeah, but I also as far as the emotional part, I had ups and downs. Like, I think, I would see here's a big one. I would see other people doing well and we're like, "What's wrong? Like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong?" So I would kind of keep going back and looking at my trades, like, am I missing so I know people go through that. I went through that period of like, I'm
Yeah,
doing
can you talk
everything
more
wrong.
about that, Amy, actually? That comparison aspect? I know it's like, it has its positive and negatives, I feel. I wanted to get your take on it. So, obviously, a lot of the channels that, in the groups that, talk about automation and so on, people do tend to share daily results or monthly results. Do you think that is healthy or unhealthy to come like, what's your thought on all this, like, the comparison part? Because it's natural for humans to look at,
I
like,
know.
results of somebody else, and you're like, what the heck? Like I'm way behind, or I'm way above. I'm way better trader. So it's, do you want to give me
Feel
some?
For me, I think last year was the first time I started to feel this, and for me, a lot of it came I'm sure it's different for everyone. For me, a lot of it came down to size. So, I've changed my trade style a little bit over the last few years. I'm still trading 0 DTE, but the trade style I'm doing is a little bit different. But I think once my size got manageable, and also because I've been doing it for a while now, so I really understand the ups and downs it goes through and how you just start to see, like, there's days when bunches of people do really great and you'll do poorly and vice versa. It's like after you see that enough times, you get kind of used to it. But I think because there were periods where I was probably sized too big, so on days I would lose and I would see other people win, it would just, it would hurt. And I wanted to like, from my heart, I wanted to be able to see other people doing well and celebrate that regardless of how I did. And so I just realized, like, okay, this is about me. It's not about anybody else. Like, if I'm not happy at the end of the day, then something's going on with me. And either I'm sized too big or I need to take a step back. And so, because I need to be okay with losing as much as
You
winning.
bring up a
Like,
very, very good point here. Like, I want to just quickly touch on this because I think it's going to make the cut for our video. Does the daily outcome of zero DTE have emotional impact on your day?
not anymore. I
Good
can
for you.
say that truly. Not
Awesome.
anymore.
Did it before? Did it
I
before?
started Oh, yeah, and I
Okay.
think, in 2024, I remember I quit for a long time because it's like I got tired of the ups and downs, but
The
then
anxiety of it. Yeah.
I came back to it, and I think a combination of size, just knowing my trades better. A lot of the trades I'm doing right now, I've been doing for quite a while. So I'm just sort of used to there. Like, you can tell yourself it, but it isn't until you kind of go through it over and over that you adapt your emotions to it. And I try to be really disciplined about tuning out at the end of the day. Like, I'll look at my results and I'll talk to a few people either on the Discord or privately. And then I just start to tune out a little bit and stop thinking about it, but that's become a habit now, so it didn't used to be because I was still always trying to figure things out or find out what other people were doing. But I
Did
definitely
sizing down, or like, did you resize to help with your
Yeah,
emotions better? You did. Okay. You
yeah.
resized. Okay.
Yeah,
And I
and
think that's a good point. That's a good point because,
I
go
I
ahead. Go ahead.
added, like, more size in 2024, through debit trades and other longer DTE trades, and so I think at one point, my size was getting big, and I knew it. Just because they were all such different trades, I couldn't quite figure out how to size them all because they all had different sizing methods. And then I kinda landed on something which for me has worked. It's like, what is if everything were to go south, what is the max, like, per week that you can lose? And so I started, like, drawing this up for myself last year, and I really stuck to it all year last year. There's some things that have, like, tail risk that, I haven't completely figured out on my end, but if you take some of that out, I'm just saying on a really bad loss day, you know, like some of the ones we've had, where there's just a multiple stops, or that day where just the
Bad
slippage was
fills or something like
insane.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like I went through all those and had some pretty bad stuff, but, um, inside of that, what's the worst, and you size from that. And it actually forced me because I was just like, "Oh, I can lose way more than that, if I'm
So your
this
emotional
way."
tolerance is kind of how you size.
Yeah.
Sounds like. Yeah.
Or just like, if I have this goal, I know, like say if I have 20%, I don't really set those because I know the market's going to give what it's going to give. But let's say I'd like to make 20%. I can size around that. Then I have to be willing to accept 5%, 10%, 30%. Like, it's like it can, but if I size for like a potential 20% return, and then I want to I'm going to include the types of drawdowns that can happen within that. So I try to figure that out to the best of my ability given the risk of my trades, and yes, it helps me decide how much I'm going to risk. So it's not a dollar number for me. It's a percent drawdown, and that's kind of what I size around now.
Okay. So you're
And
just yeah.
I feel like I can live with it. Like,
But
I went
it's
through it.
it
Like,
sounds like
last
you did,
year
yeah.
during all the, tariff stuff all the way down to Liberation Day, like,
Liberation Day of PNL from people's accounts. Yeah, I remember that day.
yeah, that all the way
Liberating money.
down though, because I have investments in my account, like stock and everything. I mean, my whole portfolio is going down. So, I mean, that was one of the bigger drawdowns I've had, but all the way down, I was okay with it. I think for me, that was a sign like I can deal with my size right now. Like, because I think I got to like a 10% drawdown last year during that period because of just everything in my account going down. And I was okay with it. I was like, okay, I can deal. And, yeah.
I think, listen, I think your portfolio, you're a buy and holder, so you could withstand the
Yeah.
ride. With zero
Yeah.
DTE specifically, it's
Yeah.
realized gains or losses that way,
Yeah.
that day, that week. That's not coming back. You know what I mean? So
No,
it's a
and
much
I'll say
different emotional state when we've all seen like a bad film where money literally disappears out of your account. You're like,
yeah,
what? It's like, what just
what just
happened? And it's
happened?
not,
Yeah.
and it's not, most likely, it is not coming back.
No, it's
It's
not.
very
No, and
rare to
it's
get a
like
bust or,
there was an FOMC that was just horrible. It was like it just kept going down, down, down. I think it was last year or the year before. And it was one of my worst loss days ever. And yeah, it's not coming back. And I mean, I felt a little sick after at the end of the day, or just a little bit like, whoa, what was that? But I was able to just come
you
back the
went back
next
the
day.
next
I went
day
back.
and you did. So that means your sizing is precisely dialed in to your comfort zone. And I think that's a good takeaway for newer traders to kind of look at is
Yeah.
sizing is everything, I think, from an emotional
And
perspective.
I feel like if I had one thing, because it's a learning process. You're going to learn as you go what your own risk tolerance is. I mean, it's like if I was like mentoring someone, be like, try to start small and build your way up. I mean, I think that depends on who you are, but it's like you'll learn. You'll eventually learn. The market's going to show you
The market will
what your
teach
risk
you, yeah.
tolerance
Yeah,
is.
what your real tolerance is. Yeah.
It's a good thing, whatever it takes to get to the point, which has been kind of my goal, that, I don't want to be either hyper excited by a big win or hyper sad by a big loss. I just want it to be what it is. And I feel like I've gotten there. Like it's just progress in either direction. And I've been through extended drawdown periods where that's even harder than a single, like if like
Do you
even with
mind
zero
sharing
DTE.
around that? How long would you have to be in a drawdown to start to like rethink your approach? 90 days, 100 days, or is like 10 days you're
I think,
panicking?
no, for me, it's like at first I said it was going to be 5 months, but I think realistically it's more like three. After 3 months, if it's been 3 months of negative performance, then to me that's a regime change or that deserves attention or like, I'm not going to stop what I'm doing because we've seen things cycle. Now I know it does cycle, but it's also like that deserves a little bit of attention, whether I do something with it or not, or maybe I size down. I have done that with one trade. It went through one of the trades I do went through 4 months, like straight down, not just like flat and down, flat and down. Like, and I thought, okay, is the ed gone in this? Like, da, da, da. But instead of stopping, I sized down and I was like, I need to leave a floater trade out there just to sense what's going on. I've kind of kept it. I'm still doing it and it has bounced back recently, which is interesting. So, but I think, yeah, if it would have gone into like 4 months of going down, I would have started rethinking. And I don't know. I don't know if I have an answer for that, but it is like I can wait. I can wait a while. I think I can wait a while. But I mean, I probably wouldn't keep it the same size after several months of that. I'd think about it. Like,
And you're fully mechanical. Like, I mean, you're fully mechanical at this point, right? You are, yeah.
yeah, I don't enjoy discretionary. I have one like lotto trade that I like to do once in a while, and at most it might risk like couple $100, and which I've lost in a day, but it feels like a little spendy thing that I like to do. But I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy trying to read the
Totally
market
agree with you.
or read the tea leaves or I have tried. I've
I
tried.
have too. I have
I've
too.
used I used option dealer services. I have charts that I like looking at some once in a while, but it doesn't attract me, and so I keep noticing that's not really attractive to you.
And it's a
I
bad
do
use of
think
time. I
signals
feel
are interesting, and I like
yeah,
researching signals a lot.
absolutely. Because you could test
Um,
signals. You could go
yes,
in and test signals, say, "Hey, if XYZ happens, let's go back 10 years, look at that signal, pop it into
yeah,
option omega. If that
yeah,
signal produces some sort of above average win rate, you know that could be monetized."
yeah,
But
yeah,
having yeah, I mean, and I've tried to say I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like the time invested
yeah,
into signal finding is a lot
yeah.
better
Oh my
investment of
gosh.
time versus me looking at the next Gex chart. Not to say, and again, some people
Yeah.
kill it with these things like
Oh, I
Gex
know they
charts.
do. I know they
It just
do.
it's just not me. It's just the
Yeah.
reality, and most likely not you as well. It sounds like you're more
No,
into
no.
research and development
Yeah.
of a
I
edge and
am
then deployment.
100% D person. I think AI has helped a lot, like developing or speeding up I would say speeding up the pace of research or being able to analyze back tests. I know people are using it in all different ways, and I'm using it for analysis. It's really helped even on my own live trades. Like I have one trade that I've done for almost 2 years now, and that's a lot of data. It's really cool. So I can kind of feed that into, AI or some code and just do some analysis. Like, what could I do to improve things? Or do you notice any patterns, even in my own trades of like regime
Mhm,
analysis? Doing stuff
mhm.
like that is really cool. And that's just like, I like spending time doing that stuff a lot more than like I barely look at my trades during the day. Like,
That's awesome. That's
I'll
good.
do a little bit at the end of the day, but even like today, I had more fun chatting with everyone about what, Jay Powell is gonna say
Yeah,
than looking at my trades. So I didn't even look until the very end of the day because I was just like, they're there. I'm not gonna do anything about them. So that.
do you have any sort of like routines pre-market, or it sounds like after market you like to check out and sort of spend time with your family, kind of disconnect from the effery that is the markets and trading. But do you have any sort of routines that you like to kind of to get into the flow? Because this is pretty much, I don't want to say you're not a full-time trader, but I think you're close to
I
that.
spend a lot of time,
Yeah,
yeah,
you spend a
doing it.
lot of
Yeah.
time on it for sure. Yeah, yeah. So, are there sort of routines that you like, or like anything you recommend, like some sort of? Do you
Yeah.
have any like anything to share in that regard?
I probably need what everybody else needs in this business is to get up and look around once in a while. Sometimes I forget. And even before trading, I do a lot of work online, and so it's good to get up and look away from the screen. Like just nothing. I need time away from all
You
that.
That's awesome. That's
I
awesome.
mean,
Like
I don't need it, so it's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go paint and paintbrushes," and, like, I'll leave my phone at home and just go
that's
stare at
awesome.
pretty things. It's really close, so it's, like, very easy. I love, like, tidying up the kitchen after the morning, and so
Good. Cleaning is therapeutic. Yeah.
so I start getting stuff out for that, and that's to me, it's like you need some kind of physical transition after that, so I do that. I don't have a ton of rituals in the morning. I'm on Central Time, so, the market opens at 8:30 here, um, which is kind of early for me.
You're an owl. Yeah.
So, I'm usually up then, but I'm not very super functional, so I kinda make sure that it's on and things are gonna go, and then I kinda go about doing other stuff for a while.
Nice.
And then I and then it's usually right around, like, noon my time that I sort of check in, and I'll check in on Discord and then talk to people or look at things, see how they're going. But as far as trade management, I mean, I'm not doing a whole lot of that, obviously, because most of it's automated. And I just noticed, like, this week, I used to always have Thinkorswim open in case I needed to do something on the fly there. It's been probably 2 months, I mean, I do have, like, stocks and ETFs in my account, and I rebalance those every so often. So I'll get into Thinkorswim to do that and, let that kinda stuff, but that's, like, once a month. I just don't even look at the broker platform anymore, and I never thought that would happen, but I'm like, "Oh, wow." I'm like, my whole interface is through, like, automation platforms now.
Awesome. And like you won't intervene. Like you will rarely, I'm assuming, intervene in case of some only maybe it's in terms of like some catastrophe or like wings going in the money or something where you'll need to
Yeah,
manually
I
align.
I have a trade now that is kind of like a black swan, left tail, like protection trade that I
Mhm.
do. It triggers off in certain instances, but I also have, like I have wings on my 0 DTE trades, so those can go. And if there's something like one time something started happening, I forget which date this was, and I wasn't present, and I started getting like dings and somewhere. So I checked in. I was like, oh my gosh. So I went
Oh,
to look at like just to make sure things were okay. But you don't usually intervene. I let it go. One time I saw that my wings were like exploding in price and I closed them early and wow, did they end up finishing so far in the money and I'm forcing myself.
sickening not to like it's
No,
sickening to best thing to do is not to like remember it. It's like a yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and it's
I mean, some people want to do that, which okay, but my trade plan is to let them go in the money. I had a trader friend who kind of think had the same strikes I did, and I was just like, I'm an idiot, But I also was like, I need a way to not. That is the hardest thing to see. Okay, that's super hard.
that's super
You're
hard.
watching something that was 10 cents go to like $15,
Yeah,
$20. You're just like everything in you is like, that's convexity. Like,
yeah,
it's crazy.
yeah. You're seeing it firsthand, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
And
like,
I,
so how do you protect that gain?
yeah. And I also, it was the same like August 5th, 2024 was the yen carry trade, like it, crazy thing that happened where I forget, it was like 3% gap down that
Yeah.
Monday. And then the Friday had been something um big and like got up to like 60 overnight. And I had some long puts out at like 30, 60 DTE. I mean, they just like they were going through the roof. And it was my first time experiencing anything like that. So I knew that like in my case, I had to take them off with the trades they were protecting. But I thought if I just had those on, like, without anything around them, I would have a hard time figuring out because it's like so I've done a lot of
Well,
research on
yeah,
that, like, if you're carrying a hedge, like, get it down what you want to do when you wanna peel those off because whether it's 0 DT or it's long because it's like that volatility mean reverts so fast or it can
absolutely.
keep going. So it's like you need some rules around it depending on how many you have. Like I'm going to take some off at 30 VIX, 40 VIX, whatever that is, 50 VIX.
One thing
I'm
I
not
like to
just going to take them off the first gain I see
yeah.
either because you want a runner for something big.
So one thing I like to do around this, and I've experienced this myself quite, I mean, I've only twice, but one time I really left like a substantial amount of money on the table. One thing I like to do, and I like to turn those into spreads. So if I'm long something, a wing,
Yeah.
and it goes
Yeah.
parabolic, okay,
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
turn it into 100, like a 50 wide or a 100 wide spread. So I'll collect some premium back, meaning I got some win back
Ooh.
out of it. So I
Yeah.
don't feel as bad if it, listen, if it drives through my, completely
Sure.
through my spread, listen, yeah,
You got a
I
lot
may
though.
have missed some portion of that 100 wide or 50 wide if it goes
That's
completely
cool.
through, but a
Why haven't I thought
portion
of that?
of it
Okay.
I get
Yeah.
back, right?
Yeah.
Because don't forget when
Okay.
a wing explodes, the wings behind it also explode, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
you created returns
Yeah.
and you have still more upside if it completely plows through both up and down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you still have more to sell after that in your trade plan, there's something because now you've got debit spreads. And
Exactly.
so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I would have had the wherewithal that day I did that. I should have done that. But I've learned I saw,
And that
okay,
comes from experience. That
that's
just comes
hard
from
to
experience.
see and that's hard to do. I need to really I mean, now and then I've written things down for myself, like just learn to take a
Yeah.
stop and move on. Like,
Yeah.
don't be a baby about it. And then I had another one that was like, trust the bot, just let the bot be.
I always talk about trust the math. Just trust the math. The minute you start
Trust the
messing
bot.
around, you're essentially
Yeah,
messing with the overall
the math.
formula of this
Yeah.
whole thing you worked endless
Yeah.
hours to create,
And
right?
if you're not sure, like if you're a person who enjoys interacting with the market, like have both. Like
Absolutely.
if you have
A
enough,
fun
if you can
account.
like
Yeah.
have have one that just runs like a robot and have then you can start comparing, like, where's my edge here? Or I have a little bit of edge in both. Great. That's awesome.
Totally.
Like, but just allow that one thing to play out because otherwise you can't measure it. Like if you're really adding edge to your I'm so into like
Are you
for
religious about
me,
measuring your results versus like what the back test is doing?
not anymore, but I really save all my like I analyze and I've been doing this. I did it a lot at the beginning of the year over the last year and I analyze all my trade logs just to see like where performance was over different things. And then I kind of look over the back test and what I want to see is like same overall. If I'm underperforming the back test, then I can kind of zone in and find out, but it's not a daily thing for me. 'Cause I just feel like I don't like combing sand, but I wanna see if it's lining up and if my, like, slippage assumptions or even entry, like, times, things like that, are close so that I can do a really clean analysis of it. But I think that's what I wanna be able to see that, like, I wanna be able to measure that. If I can't, if I keep intervening or interrupting, then there's just no way to know. Like, am I really adding some benefit here if I'm
Mhm.
switching this and that? I think there's a lot of value in having something just run like a robot, you know, next to your other things you like to run.
Right. Right. Well, it's been an hour. I'm just trying to think of what else we could cover. I think we've covered a lot of the stuff, and I appreciate all your input. I think it's
Yeah,
valuable, and I think for anybody listening, especially newer traders, listening to that sort of robotic, spend your time on R&D, let the math play out stuff. I think that's
yeah,
meaningful,
yeah.
really meaningful, because it's very easy to let your emotions start to kind of take reign on things when you're new to this. You're like, "Well, I can't possibly do X or can't possibly do Y." You're not smarter than the market. They will quickly humble you. So, yeah, trust
No.
the math, trust sort of the homework that you've done to put this all together.
Trust your homework, spend most of your time if you can. Research is really valuable. Like I listen to a lot of kind of high level quantitative type thinkers and traders. I mean, like 80% of what they're doing is research, not
Yeah,
trading. It's
building the
just that's
bot is not hard. Yeah, what it
no,
does
building
is
the bot and the back test, and it's like, but spending the time like really researching and another big one is understanding the reasons your trade is working. Now
absolutely.
that takes time, but I think that's a very valuable to learn. Like, why does this have edge? Like, yes, you can have a back test, but like, why does it? And then you start to learn when it starts underperforming, why.
Mhm.
So that's something I focused a lot on. Like I have some trades that are very seasonal, and it took me a while to figure out, okay, where is the edge for this come from, and why is it underperforming in this particular market? This market we're in right now, I have one that's just like, ugh. But there's no momentum in this current market. So things that rely on
I mean,
momentum,
today could be the first day of momentum finally. We're just about to break the 200 SMA. There finally
okay,
could be a push down, right? Like,
I love hearing that
I
because
mean,
it's been so like
we've been
snaky
I
through,
mean, we're filming this in March of 2026. From
yeah,
November till now, we've been oscillating
it's
in like a
so
4% zone, right? And finally now we're seeing some momentum follow
and it's
through.
been the same with volatility. It's like it goes up, it mean reverts. It goes up. So it's like all of it's had that mean reversion stuff in it. And it's ready, it's ripe for a breakout.
We know that volatility is a mean reverting period,
Yeah.
but I mean,
Yeah.
the markets do have a tendency to trend once in a while, and
Yeah. Yeah.
they haven't been trending in months essentially because we've
No.
been oscillating.
No.
Hopefully
And
now.
that's something I've been like studying a little bit. I'm still baby steps learning, but about where the edge and momentum comes from. And I've read some papers on it. One of the cool papers I read talked a lot about, part of the edge and momentum is actually being willing to trade through all the mean reversion periods because when the breakout periods happen, they are some of the most profitable periods. It's
Absolutely.
like if you really have an edge and like trend and momentum, like you want to be there when it starts. And that
You got
kind
it.
of means you have to suck up the drawdowns, which is hard, but there are definitely,
And that's a good point because, and I think this again goes back to every trader is a bit different. Some
yeah,
traders cannot handle like sub 60% win rate trade. They just
yeah,
mentally
Yeah.
can't handle the low
Yeah.
frequency of win. But the wins
And
could be
I
big, obviously. They
understand
would
that.
have to be big
I
for the sense
understand
of
that.
edge, but it's a lot of people can't handle that. They need,
Yeah.
they need high win rate, even though small wins, but
Yeah.
high win rate.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I got that as a new trader. It's like it generates a feeling of success. So I understand why people are drawn to that. But you do learn. You do learn to be able to do the 48% win rate strategy.
And listen,
If
as
it's
long as
baked
it
in with other things. I know someone who only trades those type, but they're like person of infinite patience.
there you go. Yeah, it's again, it's finding what work. The trader needs to sort of find what trades work for them personally, because that's going to create a plan that you're more likely going to stick with, right?
Exactly, and I think that's like, have patience with yourself until you find that. Like, I still feel like I'm new at this, even I've been doing it for a little over 4 years, 3 years, I don't know, little over 4 years, but I'm still new at it, I feel like. But I'm also finally getting like, oh, this is kind of my style. I'm very analytical. I like doing things this way, and these are the kind of trades that I feel really comfortable doing, and I know
Right.
them. It took me a while to get there, so it's like you gotta have kind of patience, and it's okay to try on someone else's style for a while if you can't, if you don't know yours, just size appropriately while you're doing it.
Listen, this is a journey. This is why it's captivating, right? It's
Yeah.
You talk to any trader and any sort of tenure, there's always something to learn. There's always something to review. That's why it entices so many people. Obviously, it's been sort of glorified in a negative, not in a negative way, in an unrealistic way on social media now.
Yeah.
So the real people, and that's why we're having these sort of interviews with people that are like, there's a reason why the same people are showing up in a Discord and being active and showing success, 4 or 5 years running. And not because they hit some, like, they bought a car
No.
and it went parabolic, like
No.
it's
There are people out
consistency.
there, they're just plugging away.
That's it. That's
They're
it.
doing it.
They're
And
the
it's
same people.
yeah.
Like, it's the same reason why the same people show up at the WSOP final poker table every year. It's not, are they the luckiest people in the world? Most likely not, right? Like, logically speaking.
Yeah.
They just understand the process, the mechanics,
Yep.
the work that is involved in being a successful trader. And it is a job. You're an entrepreneur, you're obviously self-employed, but this is still work. This is not just, I'm gonna go on Discord, some guy is gonna say buy Tesla puts, and you're gonna mint a Lamborghini out of it. That's not how this
That's
works.
really important. I got that in me very quick. I treat it like a business. Like a lot of things are expenses, like when I'm buying services and I have to put a limit on that and it's just like anything, inflow expenses. And
Absolutely.
so and having that kind of discipline with it is really good because you some of it's market tuition. Like maybe for 6 months you end up spending more finding it out. That's how I lost a lot of money on my business when I started it. Or I was not lost, but I was spending a lot to get started up. And that's just how it works. So options are no different.
Respected, treated like a business, and if anything, in any business, as long as you don't give up and you keep at it and you make prudent decisions, there will be some fruit at the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the hope. Okay.
Yeah.
That was an
Okay.
hour 10, Amy. Good job. Good
Wow.
job out there.